When I see you dancing, I'm like, hola, 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 hola. With your move fancy, make me wanna hola, 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 hola. I got your attention, spending that moolah, 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 moolah. I'm a drop popping, pocket, swola, 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 swola.
You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristadoulou.
Swola, 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 swola.
All right, everybody, welcome back. It is June 3rd, 2021, another episode of the Greeks Gridiron. I am your host, Ethan Haristadoulou, and today, should not be on repeat. And so for today, there's a handful of things we're going to be able to talk about with you guys. Not like anything earth-shattering. Everyone's still kind of twiddling their thumbs and just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with players like Aaron Rodgers, Julio Jones. So much trade talk going on about them two specifically. So everyone's just kind of sitting around waiting to see what happens with them. I mean, I'm amongst the group as well. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen to all these people, and I would really like to know at some point soon so we can talk about it. I'm still in the boat that I think Aaron Rodgers might end up being on another team next season. I feel like as each day passes by, though, that might become more and more unlikely. I really thought if a trade was going to go down, it would probably be within these first like 3, 4, maybe even 5 days of the month. So still a couple of days where I think, the opportunity and window is really wide open. But the longer that doesn't get resolved, the longer I start to think that maybe the Packers are going to stand their ground and kind of hold on to Aaron Rodgers and just keep him there. I don't really know how that will end up shaking out. I think that's a lot of wasted money in your cap room, or even just having just a waste in terms of value on the Packers side of things. And I've been saying this for a while, you're not just putting your money where your mouth is, moving on from Rodgers and starting Love if you were so high on him, drafting him and moving up for him last season. So just some things to think about as we kind of roll through these next few days. But I do have a handful of stories we'll discuss today and kind of go into a little bit of detail of. But first things first, before we get the show rolling, I will fire off my question of the day to you guys. And my question is, which second-year quarterback do you think is going to make the biggest leap going into this season? The 5 that I have listed specifically, and the 5th one being because of the Rodgers situation, Burrow, Herbert, Tua, Hurts, and Love. Those are, the first 4 are quarterbacks that are expected to be starting going into this season. Love is obviously a big question mark where you would have to assume that he's probably going to get playing time at some point this year if all hell breaks loose and the whole Rodgers situation either ends up with him being traded or he just ends up not going anywhere and decides he wants to sit out for the entire year or retires or whatever the rumors are trying to say. So very curious to see what you guys think about that. For me personally, I have a very strong feeling that Justin Herbert's about to really come on this year. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year last season. He was uber impressive on the terrible team that was the Chargers last year. And, I say terrible in terms of record-wise, but overall, that team is a solid team, very talented, and I think they made some good moves going into this year. So, I have a very strong suspicion that the Chargers are going to be one of those maybe dark horse teams pushing for that like number 6 or 7 seed in the playoffs, especially if Herbert just builds off of his already strong rookie campaign. But staying on the topic of young and up-and-coming quarterbacks, the first story we have for you guys today that we'll talk about is Joe Burrow in specific. A lot of good news coming out of the Bengals camp in terms of Joe Burrow. It sounds like he's already started to turn some heads just based off of the limited stuff he's been doing at OTAs, obviously coming off of that gruesome ACL injury he suffered last season. Head coach Zach Taylor, after practice this past Tuesday, was quoted as saying this in an interview: "It's been fun watching him because he looks good throwing the football. He can't do all the moves and stuff and what he'll be doing once the season rolls around, but just watching him throw the football, it's the same old Joe." So that's exciting. It's good to hear that, Joe Burrow isn't, losing his arm talent because of his ACL injury, but it's good to see that he's kind of back to doing his old thing. And people are, saying that he looks just like the player he was last year coming in as a rookie when we were getting through the early part of the season. So good to hear about that. On top of that, some glowing reviews from Tyler Boyd, Thaddeus Moss. They noted that Burrow has even more zip on his passes so far through these OTAs. Burrow himself actually noted not too long ago, he is about 85% ready to go. So even he's kind of, saying to everybody, I'm excited about where I'm at, but, slow your roll. I am only at about like 85% or so, but things are trending in the right direction for him. Now, on top of that, something that came out that he stated the other day, he said that he wants to work on the Bengals offense being more explosive. And when I obviously the Bengals not the best offense last year, I was curious about the numbers and looking into it, and I did. The quote from him was that there was some good and some bad, this being from 2020. I'd like to be more explosive, and I think I was really good in quick game situations. Fourth down, we were really good. Empty, we were really good, so empty pass play sets. But we need to be more explosive with play action passes. All of our downfield passing needs to improve. And then when I looked into the numbers on this, I could understand where he's coming from. He was 9 of 46 passes. That's a 19.6% completion on 20-plus air yards thrown. So that's like the actual air yards the ball traveled as opposed to just like passing yards in general. He only had 293 yards and a touchdown. This is per Next Gen Stats. So obviously not very good. That was actually worst among all QBs that had at least 40-plus attempts of deep yard passes going 20-plus or more. So obviously some stuff for him to work on. It's good to see that he's starting to feel good and he's ready to get himself back into the swing of things. But, he's identifying where he needs to kind of improve and work on. And on top of that, he's also sounding like he's feeling confident. He's ready to go. And it sounds like the Bengals are expecting him to be full go for training camp as well. So nothing but good things about Burrow and exciting to see. Now, staying on the topic of second-year players, we also have some news regarding Jeremy Chinn. For those of you that did not know, he was essentially an everything is what it seemed like on the Panthers. Their website had him labeled as a linebacker. Some people thought he was a safety. Other people considered him a DB. Pro Football Focus, they basically keep track of every single snap that a player plays. He had 392 snaps in the box, 84 on the defensive line, 230 in the slot, 24 wide cornerback, and then 237 at free safety. So, I mean, when you want to talk about a do-it-all type of guy, he literally was everywhere on the field. Well, the Panthers have officially stated that they are going to be moving him to the safety position. Now, people are assuming he's probably going to be more on the strong safety side of things. He is a little bit of a bigger guy. Then again, the Panthers did have him labeled as a linebacker last year, so obviously you probably expect him to be more of a strong safety type role than a free safety. Jeremy Chinn, super impressive. On top of that, he actually had a little bit of a note to make on here. Sounds like something's going on outside my house. Police are flying by. But Chinn on his position change. I'm comfortable playing safety and I'm comfortable playing any position. So wherever I'm needed, I will play. So it sounds like he is open to the idea of moving to the safety position. I mean, he was a bona fide playmaker last year, runner up for the Defensive Rookie of the Year award. He had 116 tackles, 1 interception, 5 passes defensed, 2 forced fumbles, a sack, 5 QB hits, and he was the first person in NFL history to ever record 2 fumble return touchdowns on back-to-back plays when they were playing Minnesota last year in Week 12. So sounds like they got some big things planned for Jeremy Chinn in Carolina. Excited to see how he does. Overall, I firmly expect him to have another strong year. He really started to come on midpoint through the year. And again, history was made. Back-to-back fumble return touchdowns. That's like something you wish you'd see in like Madden, never mind in real life. But things looking good for Jeremy Chinn. Expect him to be more in the backfield. He's probably going to be more of the in-the-box type safety, especially since they had him labeled as linebacker last year. Expect him to play more in the middle of the field than he would just in the back end covering those deep zones. Now, on the topic of players, this one about former MVP Lamar Jackson. This was something that came out earlier today, and I was actually very intrigued to see, and I'm actually excited to see from him because I'm starting to become higher and higher on Lamar Jackson the more I kind of look into his numbers, watch some of his film. For anybody who is new to the show, and honestly, for the people that have been watching, I will be honest, I had fallen off a little bit the last couple of years watching football. It wasn't until I decided to make a career move into sports talk that I really started watching football completely again and really kind of got into things. So like my opinion on some players just really wasn't there. I didn't really have a whole bunch of information on a lot, but the more research I do on everybody and I see things, it's funny how like the perception that the media spins on one player is completely different from what you can actually see on tape and just based off their numbers alone. So apparently the Ravens are planning to use Lamar Jackson under center more in 2021. Now, some numbers and stuff that came out from this that I didn't even know. Apparently, he only had 36 of 889 snaps under center, which is only 4% of the plays he ran. So that's insane to me because when you think of the quarterback position, even with mobile quarterbacks, you think that, that they're going to be under center a lot more than that. That was the least, among quarterbacks. So that's a little bit jarring to me. Offensive coordinator Greg Roman spoke about this in an interview. He actually said that is definitely going to be something that is a part of what we do this year in terms of speaking on putting him under center more. The percentage of which I cannot state at this point. I don't know the extent of it, but we are working on it and evaluating it every day. So expect to see Lamar Jackson probably put under center more. This probably has to do with the development of him as a quarterback. Now, if you are any sort of involved in knowing what's going on in the NFL or even just watch anything pertaining to the NFL, Lamar Jackson gets this weird scrutiny from some side of the fans where like they consider him a running back and not an actual quarterback. He runs a lot. Yes, he obviously set the record for QB rushing yards in a season this past year. So like I can understand what people are trying to say about that, but he is a quarterback first. And I mean, the numbers show it as well. I was going through some of the numbers and trying to understand where like some of this criticism was. And it seems like it's more media driven than it is anything else, or social media driven, whatever you want to call it. But when I'm looking at the numbers here, Jackson currently has 68 touchdowns to 18 interceptions in his 37 starts as a passer. So he's averaging just under 2 touchdowns a game. And I believe just under, what is that? Half an inch, so 0.5 interception. So like he has 1 interception every other game. Those are some really good numbers. I mean, granted, could the touchdown numbers be slightly higher? Sure, but he does have the athleticism. He does run a lot. So like you look at his rushing touchdown numbers, he has like 7, 8, 9 rushing touchdowns per season. So you subtract that from the passing touchdowns, that would make sense. The number's a little bit lower. He's athletic. He can make the play with his legs. He doesn't need to rely on the passing so much. Now, on top of that, this was something that I wanted to look into because I'm very curious about this. This is a number that I've been starting to hear about recently, and just from like research that I've done, and I've seen the number pop up a few times, is the on-target throw percentage, because completion percentage is a really weird stat to use in terms of how accurate a quarterback is, because it doesn't account for drops and, and just like the weird things that can happen that is not on the quarterback. So when you look at on-target throw percentages, Lamar Jackson sits at 75.65 in the last 2 years. Now, I put together a list of 5 quarterbacks, Jackson included, of some of the more notable names and passers in the league. He's above Tom Brady on target throws in the last 2 years. 73.5% for Brady. Jackson sits at 75.65. Allen's like 0.5% above him at 76.15. Mahomes sits about like 1.5% over him at 77.05, or about 1.5%. Watson's at like 78.55%. And these are what some people consider the top quarterbacks in the league. He's literally in the thick of things. The only people that have like significantly higher numbers are Drew Brees, because most accurate quarterback in NFL history, and then Aaron Rodgers, who just had like a monstrous year at an MVP level that, we have not really seen too often from quarterbacks. But I mean, overall, his numbers compared to others around him, he's literally in the thick of things. So the point that I'm trying to make with this whole rambling rant here is that, you say what you want about the rushing totals and things like that, and I'll be honest, I kind of thought not a lot of it, but like a slight bit of it, with the whole running back ideology, because he's run for so many yards and he's rushed for so many touchdowns. But at the same time, the passing numbers are there. He's 23 years old. He's still learning the game. I mean, he started halfway through his rookie season, and they managed to get into the playoffs his second year. I mean, like, Lamar Jackson's trending in the right direction. It's clear Baltimore wants to put him in a position to start throwing more, because I think they really want to shake that whole "you're a running back" thing that people keep trying to say about him. And I think that Jackson's really primed and positioned, especially with the team around him. They have Sammy Watkins coming in, where if he stays healthy, effective wide receiver. Then on top of that, you have somebody like Rashad Bateman, who has a ton of potential upside. Mark Andrews there at tight end. I mean, and then there's just so much to like about this team. Things are looking really good. They're trending in the right direction. While last year might not have been quite the MVP year Lamar Jackson had the year prior, he was still playing at a very good level of quarterback. He's young, and, obviously the year prior, he had a little bit of the surprise element to his game, bursting onto the scene. So say what you want about his MVP year. It happened. He was the best in the league that year at what he was doing. Last year, still a very strong year at quarterback. Now they're kind of taking the initiative in Baltimore to really push him under center and force him to play more of that quarterback style position. I'm excited to see how well he does, because from some of the highlights I've seen, he has the ability to throw the football. He's just also uber athletic. So I think progression as a pocket passer and being forced to kind of throw a little bit more because you're playing from under center in those positions there, I think will be really good for his progression. I'm very excited to see how it goes. And I think, honestly, we're only going to get good things from Lamar Jackson moving forward on this. Now, we'll take a break from player news, talk about some league-wide stuff that's going on here. This was actually a surprise to me. And what's funny is I didn't even hear anything about this. And I found out like not too long before the show actually started. The United States Football League, after 36 years of being defunct since they folded up, and after I think they were only around for like 3 years is what I read, plans to return as a spring league in next season 2022. The plans that they have set in place, they want to have 8 teams, and they're planning on basing the teams, I guess, on like the original iteration. So like team names and like logos and style, like for the teams is going to go back to the similarities that they had, or be similar to what they had back in the day, in those early to mid 80s when they were initially a franchise, or I don't know, not a franchise. I guess you would call it a league. Fox Sports is going to be serving as the official broadcast partner for the league. Brian Woods, who is the new USFL co-founder, spoke about this a little bit. He said, "We look forward to providing players a new opportunity to compete in a professional football league and giving fans everywhere the best football viewing product possible during what is typically a period devoid of professional football." Now, I like it. I'm all for it. If you've watched this show, I have said this over and over and over again. More football is good for me. It is good for everybody else. It is good for the game. There's not enough football in the spring, in my opinion. Obviously, you have like some of the bigger colleges that do like their spring training games that they do or whatever they are. But I mean, it's not like legitimate football. And, we've had the American Alliance Football League that folded up a couple years ago. The XFL folded last year because of the whole pandemic. I mean, we've a really string of bad luck and upstart leagues. So it's unfortunate that keeps happening, but it's nice to see that somebody else is going to take another step up to the plate and give it a go. Granted, this past spring was... I guess this past spring, because that's when the games are being played, wasn't really devoid of football, because if you watched along on this show early on during the first few months while we were covering the fan-controlled football league, there was some football to watch, obviously much different than what we're used to with the NFL-style product, and I'm assuming that this is going to be more of a traditional sense of football as well. They probably plan to keep things as close to the NFL as possible, because it sounds like this is going to be kind of like, if it's a spring league, some sort of launch pad into the NFL, I would assume, or if the United States Football League wants to succeed, I would assume will take on that some type of role. So I'm excited to see it. Some big names came from it, and I was not even aware of this because I had never honestly heard of the United States Football League up until this announcement was made. But during the 3 years it was opened, apparently players like Herschel Walker, Reggie White, Steve Young, and Jim Kelly came from there. Had no idea about any of that. So news to me. Excited to see that, though. More football. What can you say? Can't really say no to that. Exciting stuff. I'm excited to see how it goes. I really, really hope that it goes well and bodes well for them, because again, more football is good for me. It's good for everybody else that's involved with football. And I mean, I love watching football no matter what time of year it is. And I mean, I was really bummed when the XFL had to fold last year because of the pandemic, because that was honestly, the XFL 2.0 was a product that I think would have stuck around and been pretty successful had it not gotten kicked in the knees at the time it did, because of the way when they decided to open their doors and start letting people in for games. So unfortunate what happened there. I'm excited to see what the USFL does, though. Now, on the topic of league news, this pertaining more to the actual NFL, some big news. The NFL is planning on, or at least a park in Dortmund. And, getting a notification here. Let me see this. All right, looks like we had a quick little disconnect there, but we're good. So, NFL is exploring the idea of hosting games in Germany, per Tom Pelissero. Stadiums like Allianz Arena in Munich, Signal Iduna Park in Dortmund, and the Olympia Stadium in Berlin are potential locations. The two that I have sitting up here on my left are of the Olympia Stadium that is in Berlin, and also the Allianz Arena, which is in Munich. If there is one thing that I know Europe has down pat, it has got to be their football, and I mean soccer football fields. I mean, dude, their stadiums are something else. That Allianz Arena, I'm pretty sure, is just covered in LEDs, and they can make it look however they want. And it is the craziest looking thing I have ever seen. It looks awesome. And then the stadium that's right above it, the Olympia Stadium, like, Europe knows how to make stadiums on a level that I cannot believe. Like I love NFL stadiums, and especially some of the new ones that have recently opened in the last few years. I mean, they look awesome, but man, there is something about the European soccer stadiums that they have over there that just like are second to none. And like the design that they have on them is so unique. It looks so massive. Like you look at the fireworks, the way that's shooting up there on the top image. I mean, that just looks absolutely nuts. So exciting news to hear about that. The NFL does have a big footprint in Germany. For those of you that weren't aware, NFL Europe was a thing for a while. They were, it was a league from 91 to 2007. It went under like a couple of name changes. So 5 teams were there, which I believe NFL Europe had 8 teams, if I'm not mistaken. 5 of them located in Germany specifically. You had the Berlin Thunder, the Cologne Centrons, Frankfurt Galaxy, Hamburg Sea Devils, and then also the Rhein Fire. Now, I decided to kind of dive into this because I wanted to see like how legit this might be and just like what is the realistic nature of them actually being in Germany and why they were looking there. The numbers are actually looking pretty good for Germany. So this is per Statista.com, which is a statistics website. 2.44 million people are considered very interested in football based off, I'm assuming this is based off of searches and things like that over in that area. And there's also another near 7 million people shown some sort of interest in football, and this is American football specifically. So I don't know if that's including the 2.44 that are very interested, or if that's like 2.44 plus the other 7 million on top, because either you're looking at about 7 million people or you're looking at a potential 10 million people. Regardless, the numbers are in the millions that have at least shown some interest in football over there. And this is such a weird topic of conversation, in my opinion, because you never really know how well like American football is going to do in other countries. And on top of that, I've never really bought into the idea that we can really relocate a team on the other side of the world like that. It just like logistically does not make sense. And it's going to slaughter the team that has to do all that traveling. I really am on the side of that. If the NFL really wants to like make an impact, they should develop leagues like NFL Europe, like, I guess like the Canadian Football League, like either work with already established leagues, as in the German Football League that they've had established since 1979 in Germany, or like they need to figure something out where they're just leagues of their own in that part of the world, and they can go from there. Now, like it makes sense if like the NFL wants to have a team in Canada, because that's literally right above New York, and depending on where you want to go in Canada, it's literally a handful of hours driving distance away from certain cities. But on the other side of the world, you should have your own established league, in my opinion. And with that would come the idea of that, those leagues could maybe play out an entire season, however it ends up working, similar to how like FIFA has, like the professional soccer of the world has all these different leagues. And then from there, they do something similar to a World Cup style where, maybe like the Super Bowl winning teams from those leagues end up playing each other in like a world championship. However they decide to do it, I think that's probably a more realistic route to go. Obviously, would it be harder starting up a whole league as opposed to a sole franchise? Yes, of course. But just logistically speaking, I don't see how, with the way the current NFL schedule is, how they could really work a team in on the other side of the world. Games would have to be spread out more. The season would have to ultimately be longer. There would need to be multiple bye weeks to accommodate teams that are traveling to and from like the other side of the world. It doesn't logistically make sense. And the teams that do have to travel to like the London games or to like those Mexico games, if it's a team from like the Northeast or like the Northwest of the country, they tend to struggle a little bit more in those games, and it doesn't really bode as well for them. They're not true home games, so the teams that give up their home games for them lose a home game. So like there's so many disadvantages to it that I don't think it makes sense logistically, but I think the NFL should consider in some shape or form starting up other leagues in these places that are showing interest. So while I don't know if this will end up leading to a team that's in Germany or like a team that's in London, like a lot of people have talked about for years and years and years now, I think them going into these other countries and playing games and kind of gauging interest would make sense for them to end up forming some sort of smaller league that would hopefully eventually blossom into a main league. Like I'm assuming the NFL does have some long-term plan where they would love to expand globally because it only benefits the billionaires that are involved in that whole organization. But I just don't see how it would work well for single teams. Would love to see teams playing in these stadiums. I just don't realistically think that a sole team is going to be able to host games in these stadiums. Now, Circling into team news, a couple of things that came out today. The Jaguars have announced plans to grow their downtown area in Jacksonville with a multi-million-dollar project. So this is pretty insane. There's going to be 2 phases to it. I'm assuming this, it feels like Jacksonville is on like a massive rise right now. And it's funny because I had somebody in the comment section of one of my videos the other day say that, and I think this was in the AFC South Power Rankings video, and it kind of made me chuckle because they said, no matter how well the Jaguars are doing or how hard they are trying to be a better team, they'll never take them seriously. And as a Colts fan, I kind of laughed because I was like, yeah, the Jaguars be the Jaguars. But I'm trying to, remove myself from that bias and look at this like in an actual like straight point of view. It really feels like the Jaguars are really trying to do a massive culture change and really change things in the area as well. And I'm kind of excited to see what's going on over there because I would love for the Jaguars to actually become a legitimate threat in the team. Like they were this close to the mountaintop not too many years ago. It feels like because of just how far they've fallen from grace, that 2017 feels like years ago. But man, they were a few plays away from knocking off the Patriots in the playoffs and making it to a Super Bowl. So, it's exciting to see that they're really starting to make a big shift. You got Trevor Lawrence. The owners are clearly willing to spend money and help the surrounding area kind of really grow and progress. Obviously, this is probably in an effort to become a more attractive location for free agents and players and things like that. But they're building in 2 phases. The first phase has a standalone football facility, a 4 seasons hotel and residency, a Class A office building, and they're also planning on improving the city-owned marina and public grounds, which is going to cost roughly $441 million. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably going to cost more than that because it seems like every time something is being built with the NFL, it ends up costing way more. If I'm not mistaken, the LA Stadium was supposed to be like $1 billion and turned into like a $3 billion project, if I'm not mistaken. So probably looking at a lot more than just $441 million. They're also in a second phase planning on adding an orthopedic sports medicine complex, which the team declined to talk about cost-wise. I'm assuming that this has to do with how much it's going to cost, and they just don't want to bring it all out at once at the moment. But owner Shad Khan did have a statement to say about it, and his basically was, my goal is for downtown Jacksonville to be the envy of cities here in the U.S. and elsewhere, and I see no reason why we can't achieve that goal. So it sounds like he feels very confident in the changes that they're looking to make in the area and really expand. I'm actually pulling up an image right now to my left side here, down at the bottom left corner of the screen, where you can see some of the images of the facility. If you're watching this on your phone, it's probably a little bit small for you to see, but if you're watching on like a computer or a TV screen, probably much bigger, maybe a little bit more visible for you and able to actually see the images. I definitely recommend go to Urban Meyer's Twitter if you're interested in looking at it. You can just pull up the image and look at it very cleanly there. But this is right from his Twitter account, where he's kind of sharing some of the images and what some of these facilities will look like. But it sounds like the Jacksonville Jaguars are really trying to make a big culture shift there. And I think that's great for the league. That's obviously great for the team as well, because for a long time, it seemed like nobody wanted to go to Jacksonville. And I mean, when you're a fan of a rival team, it's very easy to look at a team, especially when they've struggled as much as the Jaguars have in recent years, and just think, yeah, I could see why nobody wants to go there. But as a fan of football in the NFL, I'm excited at the prospect of, the Jaguars potentially being a team that's going to compete with us, because as much as I loved watching Peyton Manning dominate the AFC South while he was, our quarterback there, and, some of the string of play we got from Andrew Luck while he was leading teams for the few years that he was here, I like competition. And in the past that, you see people knock like the Patriots for playing a weak division. You want your team to be battle tested, because I think those battle tested teams ultimately end up being the ones that make it late into the postseason and into the Super Bowl. So you want a battle tested team. You want a tough division that's going to test your team as a fan. So I'm excited to see what the Jaguars end up doing and how things turn out for them over there. It's looking like they're really trying to work on things despite the whole Tebow mania thing they got going on over there. But exciting stuff. Staying on the topic of team news, we're going to go and just switch gears over to the Baltimore Ravens. This is the last piece of news that I have for you guys before I let you all go. It sounds like the Baltimore Ravens are going to be honoring former GM and Hall of Famer Ozzie Newsome by donating $4 million to Maryland's historically black colleges and universities. A lot of money going here. This is a really big thing. I think it's a great way to honor Ozzie Newsome, who, Hall of Famer as a GM and I don't know if he is in the Hall of Fame as a GM. I know as a player, but honestly, a Hall of Famer in every single way you could possibly bring it down. $1 million is going to be going to each of Maryland's 4 schools: Bowie State, Coppin State, Morgan State, and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. The way they're going to be doing it is yearly. Each of the 4 schools will select 5 city school graduates as Ozzie Newsome's scholar recipients, and then for there, they will be offered the ability to receive $10,000 per year annually for 5 years worth of college. So $50,000 per student. So gracious donation, obviously. Happy to see that the Baltimore Ravens are stepping up to the plate. 1, making change, and also 2, honoring a legendary figure in the NFL and Ozzie Newsome. I mean, as a tight end and as a GM, I mean, he brought in one of the most dominating defenses we've ever seen in NFL history in the 2000s Baltimore Ravens. So love to see them honoring him in such a fantastic way. But that pretty much wraps up everything that I have for news for you guys. There's nothing really else to talk about. Again, we're kind of in a weird transition period where we're just hearing things about OTAs and we're getting sound bites and clips of things and, you know, all that stuff, but there's no real super newsworthy things going on. So other than that, I'll run back the question of the day for you all one more time. If you made it to the end of the show, which second-year QB will make the biggest leap in 2021? Will it be Burrow, Herbert? Will it be Tua, maybe Jalen Hurts, or maybe Jordan Love gets his opportunity to be the quarterback that the Green Bay Packers were hoping he would be when they drafted him in the first round after moving up to grab him, because they should probably just get rid of Aaron Rodgers at this point, because why are you hanging on to him anymore? You guys traded up for a quarterback in the first round. But that's not the conversation we're having today. But again, I appreciate you all for watching. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. We are currently at this moment, at least before I went live, at 97 subscribers. So we're getting close to our first milestone of 100 subs. Really exciting stuff. So make sure you fire away at that like button, you know, comment, share it with your friends. If you love what you're seeing here, you know, if you like the content, please let people know about it. And again, hit that sub button. I'd greatly appreciate it. But other than that, I will send you guys out for the rest of your Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your week. I will catch you guys Monday, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern time here on the Greeks Gridiron. I'm Ethan Hristodoulou. Have a good rest of your evening, everyone.